Hey guys, it's good to see everybody today. I'm sorry we couldn't be live last time, but hopefully all of you watched part 1 of these winter birds that are showing up, because now we're going to start with part 2. So we went over a few birds last class, but this time we're going to talk about common birds around the area, and I know you guys have seen all of these. So the ones we're starting with today, you'll see them up on your screen, are blue jays and cardinals.
Hang on. All right, I'm getting.
Hang on. By the way, just to make sure, be sure you're keeping up with those nature journals, guys. Get out. It's starting to get really good and all the birds are coming back. So you'll be able to see more birds than what we're talking about now. And some of them are even migrating through. So they won't be here the whole time. We set? Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're going to talk about blue jays and cardinals. These guys are so common and they're common around this area. But I figured I'd bring them both up so you guys could know exactly how to ID them if you don't, okay? So we're going to start with the blue jay. The blue jay has a large crest. Now, what's a crest? Well, if you look at that picture of the blue jay, the thing on top of his head that kind of sticks up like this, that's a crest. Okay, he's got a broad, rounded tail. So a lot of the feathers are going to be round on the tail. White, light gray underneath, blue, black, and white above. Biggest idea on a blue jay, he's a big blue bird. That's the easiest thing to know about him. The cardinal, just the opposite. He's a big bird. He's got a long tail. He has a short, thick bill. If you look at that picture, you'll see his bill is really short and thick, and that's really good for the way he feeds. He also has that crest on top of his head, and he's going to be red with the black around his face. And in that picture, that's a female right next to him. So you can see the females aren't as brightly colored, but they still look the same. Okay, so habitat, where do you think these guys live? Where do you see these guys all the time? Anybody know? All right, guys. These guys are all around your house. Now, come on, I know you all know where these guys live. They live in forests. They like oak trees, okay? They like forest edges rather than into the deep forest. That's why you see them around your lawns. Same thing with the cardinals. They like forest edges, and they also like big shrubby areas. So if you have any big tangled areas like that, you'll find cardinals flying in and out of there a lot. Their diet, they're omnivores. Let's review. What's an omnivore?
We're getting some feedback from library patrons.
Nobody remembers what an omnivore is?
Oh, they eat everything.
They eat everything. Perfect. They eat everything. So yeah, they have no problem finding any food. They like insects, nuts, and seeds. Now the blue jays will eat small, injured invertebrates and dead or dying birds. So these guys will eat some of that. But that's okay. I mean, you know, they need to eat too. So let's hear, oh wait, let's go over nesting. So to look for a blue jay nest, you want to find a deciduous or coniferous tree. Now, deciduous trees are the ones that lose their leaves. Coniferous are the pine trees, whatnot. So they like the crotches. So where the branches meet like this, you're going to find the blue jay nests in there in thick branches, okay? About 10 to 25 feet off the ground. So if you want to find one of those, you'll need binoculars. They like taking twigs from live trees, and sometimes they struggle to break them off. Why do you think it's hard for these birds to break off live twigs, not dead twigs?
That's a good question.
Think about it a little bit.
Because it's still strong.
Right, exactly, because the tree's still live. It's hard to, I mean, think about you trying to twist a twig off a live tree. So if you see a blue jay or cardinal struggling with a twig, they're building a nest, okay? Same thing with cardinals. They like to be in the forks, but they like smaller branches and saplings. And like I said, they also like those shrubs or really viney, shrubby areas. They like to nest in there. And I think that makes for good cover from predators, okay? And they like to nest about 1 to 15 feet high, hidden in the foliage. So they're a little lower than the blue jays. So now what we're going to do is we're going to listen to what a blue jay sounds like. Okay, I know you guys have heard this before.
All right, give me just a second.
Mhm. I hear other birds in the background too. Okay, now that high pitch, that's a blue jay. I know you've heard it. In the background also, there's some chickadees. So go ahead and play the cardinal sound so we can compare the two. Okay. Okay, so you heard that sound. It's a very repetitive sound. It kind of sounds like he's saying here, 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 here. And just for note, in the background, that was a red-winged blackbird making that congaree sound. So you got a lot of birds in that one, but cardinals and blue jays are the easiest guys to identify. So let's go on to the next slide. And we are going to talk about woodpeckers. And I'm going to go over 3 different kinds because they look so much alike. So these are really challenging to figure out, okay? So the first woodpecker we're gonna go over is called a downy woodpecker, and that's the guy down at the bottom of the screen. He has a very chisel-like build. There's a reason for that.
Which one are we looking at?
It says woodpeckers at the top.
Yeah, which guy is the
All of them at the bottom are the downy
gotcha.
woodpeckers. Yeah, we're gonna do each slide different. Sorry, guys. All of those guys down at the bottom are downy woodpeckers. They have that chisel-like bill. Their head's kind of blocky shaped. It's kind of square. They've got wide shoulders and they'll stand very tall. Then they have checkered black-white on their upper parts and white and black on their wings. So if you look at his belly's totally white. But if you look at that middle page, see all those stripes on the wings? Mm-hmm. That's how you can ID a downy. And they also have that little red spot right up there on their head. Okay, and they're not that big. They're about this big, all right? They do, when they're in a tree, you'll see them leaning away from the tree and they'll put their tail feathers on it to balance when they're feeding. The males are the only one that has the red patch, okay? Habitat, these guys like open woodlands, deciduous, once again, trees with the leaves falling off. They like deciduous trees. They like to be along streams, parks, suburbs. They like to be around people, okay? So you're gonna find these guys all around. Their diet, they're an insectivore mainly. So what is an insectivore? What do they eat? Anybody know? There's a clue in the name of it.
Insect.
Insects. Yes, they mainly eat insects, okay? And they like insects that live inside wood or tree barks, okay? So you'll see them pecking at trees. They're not pecking because they're trying to make holes in the wood. They're pecking because they're getting those live bugs out of it. They're eating them. They also like some plant material, and you'll see them at bird feeders as well. They do like some bird feeders. They do nest in dead trees and dead parts of live trees. So to keep woodpeckers in your yard, if you have a dead tree that's not going to harm anybody or cause any danger, leave it up, because a lot of these animals love those dead trees. Okay, and you will find lots of woodpecker nests in dead trees. That's mainly what they like.
Trevor has a question.
Yes, what's the question?
Are those sometimes called sapsuckers around here?
Oh. It's not a sapsucker. A sapsucker is a different bird.
Huh.
It is a different bird.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit different bird. The sapsuckers have more of a little bit of yellow on them. But yeah, look up Google. If you look up Google and like compare a picture of a downy woodpecker to a sapsucker, they do look very similar. Yeah, that's why woodpeckers are kind of hard to ID. They do have a call, and if Ms. Shauna will play that for me. It's a very high-pitched peep. Hear that little peep? So yeah, that little high peep, 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 that's a downy woodpecker. You will see them circling trees, pecking in there, and what they're looking for is bugs, okay? So let's go to the next slide, and we're gonna talk about the hairy woodpecker, all right? So look at this guy compared to the downy, and he looks very similar, okay? So this guy's medium sized. He's a little bit bigger than the downy woodpecker. He's got a long, straight, chiseled bill for pecking into the wood, and he's got very stiff, long tail feathers. His head is nearly the same length as his bill, so they're about equal. He, on his head, and if you look at that middle picture, that's your big difference between the downy and the hairy. This guy has black and white stripes on his head. Okay, and he's got a large patch of white that goes down his back. Remember, the downy didn't have any white back here. He was all black with those white stripes, okay? So yeah, and he's also got the red back here as well. His habitat, he also likes mature woodlands, okay, with medium to large trees, suburbs, parks. You can see them in cemeteries, forest edges, swamps, pine orchards, They're pretty much everywhere. They are also an insectivore. They like to eat larvae of wood-boring beetles, bark beetles, ants, and moths. So the larvae of those wood-boring beetles are going to be in those live trees. So that's where they're pulling them out of when you see them pecking on there. They do like to nest in the dead stubs of living trees and dead trees. Once again, woodpeckers like dead trees to live in. So if you have dead trees in your yard, keep them there, as long as they're not going to harm anybody or anything. On their diet, let's go back to their diet real quick. They do eat some fruit and seeds, and they will show up at feeders from time to time, just for a little break, I think. Maybe they get tired of digging around for those beetles.
I would.
They do help control bark and wood-boring beetles, and that helps the tree population. They help keep beetle infestations down, especially after a fire. Because after a fire, what a fire will do is all the bark beetles that are hidden in those trees, the fire is going to pop them out, and then they're going to start eating. This guy will eat them, so that's awesome. They do like to nest in the cavities of the dead trees, I said, and the hole would be on the underside of a branch. So instead of seeing it up here, you would see it here. So he's got to kind of crawl in and go down to get into it. And I think that helps with two things. At least this is my theory. I think it helps with keeping rain out of his nest, her nest. And it also helps with predators. Predators aren't really going to look up under there much. They're kind of look for them on the top. Okay. It also helps to keep squirrels from taking over their hole, because those squirrels will do stuff like that. Let's listen to see. Let's hear what a hairy woodpecker sounds like. There it goes. Hear that real light peep? There you go.
That's very subtle.
Woodpeckers have very quiet peeps. they're very quiet about there. They're not like Woody Woodpecker, who used to laugh really loud. But no, these guys are, they're really, really quiet. Okay, so the last guy we're going to talk about is a red cockaded woodpecker. Now the males will have a tiny, very small red streak or a cockade at the upper border of the cheek. And you can see it in that, oh shoot, I lost my slide. You can see it in that picture all the way to the, I believe it's on the far right. Or no, excuse me, it's right in the middle. You can see that little bit of red. That's about as much red as you're going to see on a red cockaded woodpecker, which kind of doesn't make any sense. You'd think he'd be more red than that, right? He's got a short, straight bill, once again, good for digging into those trees. He's got a bright white cheek patch, and you can see that on those two middle pictures. His cheeks are totally white there, and then he's got a stripe coming down below that patch. So it's kind of like he's wearing maybe a little mask right here, and then the white comes off of it, okay? His back is got horizontal white bars going across it. If you look at that first picture all the way on the left of your screen, you can see the bars going across his back while his wings are spread. His habitat, he likes old growth forests. There aren't a lot of them around. That's why preserving forests is really, really good, because we want some of those old growth trees in there for animals like this to be able to live. And we want these animals around. They eat bugs. They'll eat mosquitoes. That's just wonderful. Okay. They like pine forests. Unfortunately, way back when in the early 1900s, a lot of the pine forests were wiped out due to logging. So conservationists have now started replanting pines, so that's helping this population a lot. They can also be found in young pine stands with dense hardwood around it. So if you have any pine trees in your yard, oak trees, hickories, walnuts, these guys will like to be around those, okay? Their diet, guess what? They're an insectivore, okay? They eat insects out of pine trees. Okay. They like the larvae and eggs of insects and other arthropods. All right. So they're found, these specific insects that they like are found under the bark of pine trees. So that's also why we need these pine trees around. Okay. They also like seeds and fruit, and they favor older, larger pine trees to be able to get up under that bark. Why do you think that is? Why would it be better for a woodpecker to try an older pine tree than a younger pine tree? Why would it be easier for them, do you think? Think about what happens to bark when a tree grows.
Is it because it's more brittle?
Yeah, exactly, because it's more brittle. A live tree, just like that live twig, when you're trying to pull that off, it's kind of hard. If you're trying to pull bark off a live tree, it's not going to give way very well. On an older tree, it'll flake. They can get those bugs out of there, okay? They do like to nest in living pine trees, okay? Opposed to the other woodpeckers that like the dead trees. They like to get into an area which is called the heartwood, and that's kind of in the middle of the tree, so maybe in a fork where the tree has been worn down a little bit. They like it there because it's a little soft. Their cavities can be more than 100 feet off the ground. So they like to be way up in the top of those old, tall pine trees, okay? They like to face west or south because they like the sun, and they're going to get some nice warmth from that direction. All right, so let's hear their call. And there's two on there. The link first, and oh no, excuse me, it's one. And play the call and drum sample. Yeah.
Call and
Okay. Sound like a woodpecker, right? Yeah, you got that peep, 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 and then you got that rat-a-tat-tat. Anytime you hear that rat-a-tat-tat, you know you got a woodpecker around. Best place to see these, where I've seen these guys around here, is on the Biltmore Estate, because they have a lot of very old pine trees, very tall there. But I know up in the woods around Madison County, up around Max Patch, you can probably find these guys up there as well. All right, so the next slide shows you all the books we have in Cardinal concerning birds and identifying birds. And a lot of you are probably thinking, why do I want to do that? It's actually a lot of fun. I started out by learning the songs, and I will tell you right now, I've got a link at the bottom of this slide, allaboutbirds.org. That is the Cornell Laboratory of Ornithology's website, and they have the best bird calls on there if you want to learn bird calls. And what's really cool about learning the calls, you don't even have to see the bird. You can just hear it and go, ha, there is a blue jay in my yard. Or, ha, there's a red cockaded woodpecker over there. After that, then you go find your binoculars and see if you can locate it. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but there are journals just for logging birds. You can find them at any bookstore, and it'll have every single bird in the United States on there. And when you find one, you write the date down. It's kind of like collecting birds, but it's all logged in your book.
That's cool.
And there are people who will do these. I know people who have done this for 30, 40 years, collecting birds. And it's really neat because you find a certain one that you have never seen, and it's so exciting that you get to write it down in your book. So take the time this spring and summer to go outside and look at the birds, ID them. It's a lot of fun. They do silly things sometimes too. I know a lot of these woodpeckers, you'll see them hopping down the tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that just fascinates me that they can hang on and do that.
Yeah.
So definitely get outside, ID some birds. Once you've done that, go on that iNaturalist site, because you guys are the scientists that are helping build the Madison County Natural Heritage Museum. So we need all that info you guys can put in there. If you don't remember how to get in, go to our YouTube channel and go back to that first episode that we did, and I explain all about the site. I explain how to make your nature journal, and if you want a review on any of these, we have them all on our YouTube channel anytime you want to look at them. Okay, all right guys, well, let's see. Oh, next month or next time we're going to be doing a one-part class on identifying spring wildflowers, and we have so many, but I'm just going to go over a few and then give you some tips on how to figure out how to get those in your journal as well. So you all have a good couple of weeks. Get out there and ID those birds. This is the best time to do it because they're all coming back or migrating through. Okay, so we'll see you guys soon.